Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Happy Recap podcast for this Monday, October 26th, 2020. Good to have you along this week. I'm JB along with EJ. Glad you can join us each and every week. I want to remind you, of course, that if you are enjoying this podcast, head below and hit that subscribe button. Also, like the podcast. These are important things that certainly help us keep doing what we're doing, and we love doing it. And certainly, baseball is winding down, EJ, as we head into the final two games of the World Series. And despite the Mets not participating, it's one of those things where I talk about I root for great stories, great games, and preferred outcomes. I'm certainly getting the first two in abundance, and the reality of it is preferred outcome has happened perhaps a little bit more than we thought too.
Absolutely. I mean, it's no secret that you and I are both openly rooting for the Rays here. And the thing I'm most happiest about is through 5 games, this has been a really competitive World Series, which is all I was really asking for. I tuned into a decent amount of the playoffs up to this point. I didn't know how much this was really going to appeal to me, but I think between the David and Goliath kind of aspect that you have going and just some really good baseball, despite the very end of Game 4, some really good baseball played, some decent pitching, some timely hitting. It's kind of everything you want out of the National World Series.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It has been, especially for a baseball fan. I mean, I don't know how appealing it is to the new fans that they try to reach from time to time. I don't know if, that it's necessarily exactly what Fox would want in that sense. But this is a baseball lover's baseball series. There's no question about it. Obviously, some oddities with the 2020 being, of course, the year of the COVID. And, you have things like, a quarter-filled stadium on neutral territory, which is obviously unusual to say the least. But you're certainly getting the quality of games, and I mean, even last night, the back and forth that you had as Kershaw seemed to have found himself a little bit in the playoffs this year. I mean, a flat-out attempt to steal of home plate. I mean, holy crap! I mean, this is the World Series that has everything.
Yeah, it's had everything that you could have asked. Even had a little controversy last night with Dave Roberts pulling Kershaw after only a couple of pitches into the 6th. And you can see our old boy Justin Turner had some very colorful language for his manager when he was pulling Kershaw. But it seemed like he had found himself last night. And last night was pretty much a basic, well all-around ball game. But, yeah, even with that, you had someone trying to steal home. And you had the announcer saying, "What a play by Kershaw," and I'm sitting there like, "What a play by Kershaw." I mean, I guess he threw the ball to the catcher, so good on him. But I think typically that's just not something you're going to see in any scenario. Never mind a World Series Game 5.
I have a question for you. You just mentioned the Turner word. Can you think of a player, past or present, in Major League Baseball, who in the media and certainly through the broadcasters, which are a part of the media, has had his former team mentioned almost as much or possibly even more than Justin Turner?
It's nauseating as a Mets fan to hear. I don't think either of us are really sitting here banging the drum that, we knew that Justin Turner could have been. We really had no idea he would evolve to this. But the national broadcasters seemingly take glee in bringing up the fact that he was a one-time Met. I mean, listen, when we let Daniel Murphy go, we all knew that Daniel Murphy was blossoming into the player he has become. Nobody had any clue about Turner. I liked Turner as a player. I thought his ceiling at that time was something of a Super Joe McEwing, and there's nothing wrong with that. Good teams need those players, but none of us have even had an inkling that this was who he would become. But, yeah, the media really loves throwing it back at us.
The reality of it is for the role that he would have played, and I get it, obviously the Mets at the time were under that whole situation where, the Madoff thing was a lot closer in the rearview mirror and costs were a little bit different. But when you've got Justin Turner, who's going to make a couple million in arbitration, and you've got this new kid, Flores, that seems to be kind of a fan favorite too. I can kind of understand why Sandy made the movie did. I mean, I know some people kind of beat him up and say, hey, you should have traded him instead of non-tendering him. And there does seem to be some of the revisionist history that goes around about Turner is that the Mets dealt him. The Mets did not deal him. They very much, in fact, picked him up. I mean, he wasn't even technically originally a Mets product. I believe he came up in the Orioles system, and they gave up on
Yep.
him.
Yep.
So, I mean, we weren't even the first organization to give up on Turner. And the point that I always make about Turner is Justin Turner signed a minor league deal as a favor to one of the Dodgers coaches who saw Turner hitting with his new style. They gave him a minor league invite. He made the team almost the last week of spring training, and he was supposed to be a utility player until somebody got hurt. He made the most of his opportunity, and I tip my hat for that, 100%. But if you're not signed after being non-tendered in early December, 3 months later, you're not signed. That means every team has passed, including the Dodgers, on offering you a major league contract. And most likely, you're telling your agent, can you see if Korea or Japan are interested? I'd really rather not play indie ball. That's the stage of the winter you're at. And that's where Justin Turner had to have been at. So, I mean, it's not like the Dodgers saw something no one else did. He fell into their laps almost literally.
Yeah, and as Mets fans, we're all too familiar with the Dodgers kind of offering a favor to someone to bring a guy on board. And the great Mike Piazza, they did that as well. It was a favor to his father. But you're right. I mean, Turner absolutely had to be considering options that did not include Major League Baseball at that point in his career. And to him, I say kudos. Nothing but the best to him. I always liked the guy. Yeah. I think he's a gritty player, and he's developed himself into a very special player. So good for him. But it's funny that you bring up Flores because that's who I pretty much had Turner pegged to be. I had them as very similar players, and obviously their career paths went two different trajectories.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too with Turner. I mean, you definitely had a guy who, when the Mets also let him go. I mean, obviously this is a guy who's found a career as a third baseman. The Mets at that point thought they were set for the next 10 years at third base with David Wright, and obviously, you can't see what happened. You don't see the spinal stenosis in 2012, 2013 quite yet. You're still ahead of that, and you have every right to think we don't have a place for this guy to play every day. And so, I mean, it made all the sense in the world at the time. Obviously, I think if Sandy Alderson had it to do again, hindsight being 2020, obviously, I mean, I hate to say it, you don't re-sign Wright, you give the job to Turner, and you call it a day. But the reality of it is I find the revisionist history fascinating, and I find the obsession with it fascinating because you just don't see it on a lot of other deals, a lot of other players. I mean, you occasionally would have heard it about Murphy in the playoffs, but it goes next level with Justin Turner, and it's fascinating why that one move is so microscoped.
It's Bobby Bonilla-ism all over again. Every year, Bobby Bonilla gets this $1 million deferred payment, and the Twitterverse and social media lights up, LOL, Mets, ha, ha.
Happy Bobby Bonilla Day.
Right, happy Bobby Bonilla Day. And whereas the reality is, as we all know, is there are dozens, if not hundreds of contracts in Major League Baseball that feature deferred money. And for some reason, Justin Turner, the one who got away from the Mets, is seemingly the only story to tell about Justin Turner is the fact that the Mets let him go. And it is infuriating to hear, but I kind of just let that one roll off the back at this point. And I can root for Turner. I can root for him to have the great career that he has become. And as Mets fans, let's not make letting Justin Turner go really impeded this franchise from any form of success. We happened to go to a World Series post Justin Turner. We were in pennant races post Justin Turner. It's not like the Mets let Justin Turner go. He became Babe Ruth, and we've gone down to being the perennial losers every year since his departure.
No, I mean, there's certain years. I mean, you could say that 2016, when Wright was down again, and the Mets fell just a bit short in the wild card game. You could say that, yeah, Justin Turner might have been able to really help them in that particular season. But overall, no, you're absolutely correct. I mean, that's the thing. You could say, oh, we could do better with this guy, or we could do better with that guy. There was a long period of time where it was all about the Scott Kazmir. That's probably the most, the most talked about former Met, prior to Justin Turner. And, for all constructive purposes, Scott Kazmir had a decent major league career. He even lost his fastball, found a new style of pitching, made a comeback. All of that's very laudable. But there will never be a Scott Kazmir plaque in Cooperstown. He is not a Hall of Famer. He will fall off the ballot after his first time on. That's Scott Kazmir's career. Decent. And yet, you really would have thought we traded Seaver again. You really would have.
I think what made that trade so egregious is just Victor Zambrano.
I agree.
Yeah, that's what made it so tough, such a tough pill to swallow. We knew what Victor Zambrano was when he was coming here, and we did not want Victor Zambrano here. I recall the day after the trade, I actually went to the game, and my buddy and I had made homemade T-shirts, and mine was Wilpon 0 on the back of mine, and his was Zambrano 0. And we actually got a picture of ourselves standing outside of the executive entrance at Shea, and we were politely urged to move along. But, yeah, that was what made that trade so egregious. Not the fact that you had this top-tier blue-chip prospect that you were trading. That's all good and fine. But what you got back from him was just absolutely a pile of dung.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I look at. I mean, the reality of it is when you have a trade like that, you could have gotten more. You could have gotten better for Scott Kazmir, in my mind. There's a better deal out there than, was it Victor Zambrano and was it Bartolome Fortunato, I think was the other half of that trade, if I remember right?
Yeah, that was the other half.
And, the reality of it is Fortunato was gone the next season, and Zambrano lasted, a year and a half total with the Mets?
Yeah, about that.
Rick Peterson fixed him in 10 minutes, and he went on to 7 Cy Young Awards. No, just kidding. But that's always been my beef with that trade. But there were people that really just could not fathom the fact that we traded Scott Kazmir, too. We do have a contingent among our fan base that there is no prospect to be traded. That's just not done because at the end of the day, that's the future of the ball club. And I've always said the minor league system serves two purposes. One is to feed the major league roster, and one is to feed major league trades.
Exactly.
And that's how it's done. And so the Kazmir thing was fine in purpose, but I just think what they got was, well, I'll be honest, crap.
Right. Well, as our good friend Casey Stern always says, prospects are cool, championships are cooler.
Yeah, parades are cooler, right? Yeah.
Right, and he's absolutely right about that. You can't absolutely grasp onto every one of your prospects with no intention of ever trading them. The thing is, if you are going to trade them, they should hopefully lead to acquiring some pieces that will lead to a parade.
Yeah. Speaking of, by the way, just I want to throw down this note, because we've had Casey on the show many, many times in our previous incarnation. There is a fascinating and fantastic, and not necessarily a good fantastic, but a fantastic article about Casey Stern in the New York Post last week. I believe Andrew Marchand wrote it. Look it up. It talks about basically the hell that Casey and his kids have been through over the past 2 years, what happened, what he's doing about it, what's happening with it. I tell you, after.
Yeah, JB, it's really sad what Casey's had to endure. He's actually not the lead chair on the pregame for this World Series, or the playoffs, which he was loving to do. And I could say that through the entire time that we had the radio show and now the podcast, he's always been nothing but supportive of us. He's always reached out to us and asked us if he could help in any regard. So we send nothing but our love to Casey. We hope everything's great. It sounds like his kids are really doing well, which is all we could hope for. But Casey, we love you, buddy, and we're always here if you ever want to tell your story.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's also started a charity and to support other families that are in the situation that he was in. And certainly I look forward to finding ways of promoting that on this podcast, because it's just a great idea. I think that his story is compelling. He's not the only one, and certainly when you're dealing with things like domestic violence, when you have a situation where the entire country, and in fact much of the world, has been locked down for 8 months, I hate to say it, a lot of it's going unreported, a lot of it's going unnoticed. And a lot of it is happening a lot more. And so we need to step up and be aware and not only help our neighbors, but help those in need, because there are a lot of people, I think, in his situation that are crying out for it right now.
No doubt about it. And if, in fact, fans are allowed back in the stadiums next year, I could certainly see a reunion of some happy recappers to the benefit of Casey's charity.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that as well. So that just a little side note there as we were talking about that. I want to transition a little bit over now to the ownership situation. And we talked about the being in the last days of Wilpon, and I firmly believe that. A couple things that have developed just today include the fact that Andy Martino of SNY has reported that the Mets ownership seemed to have the votes to get the deal done. They have at least the 23 required votes. I have a feeling personally, EJ, I think it's going to be 28-1 myself. I think Mr. Reinsdorf is going to remain the lone no, but maybe he can convince a friend or two. I don't know, but I have a feeling it's going to be a very, very low number of owners not approving. The story that USA Today brought up last week by a reporter I won't name, lest I give him more clicks, but there were a little bit, I guess you could say there were a little bit of legs to that story, but it does seem like our dear friend A-Rod, who apparently would not have enough votes, EJ, if Cohen somehow did not get the team, A-Rod would not have enough votes to get it either. So I don't know if that makes A-Rod back off finally and realize, okay, I guess they really don't want me after all. But I thought that was a particular irony, but it does seem like A-Rod has been, stoking the flames and trying to get this to happen. Sounds like from de Blasio's office, they're looking at it because they have to more than they want to. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. Obviously, it's Bill de Blasio. He's very unpredictable. So until he officially signs off on it, I still have a little bit of nervousness, but it sure sounded like this is business as usual, and no one seems to think that it's going to be held up, and we could see a vote by the end of this week, first of next, for the full MLB ownership, which could be 10 more days of Wilpon.
Right. I firmly agree. The vote's going to be 1 no, and that's it. I think it's going to go 29-1. I think Reinsdorf, of course, he'll be the lone holdout. I'm fine with that. I'm just happy to hear that it happened.
Yep.
So that's great news. We're moving forward. And like you said, A-Rod knows he has no support with the ownership, so he can actually back off now. And I fully expect de Blasio is going to move forward. Like I said, Bill de Blasio, as universally hated as he is, and seemingly doesn't care how universally hated he is, still, he does not want to get into a whizzing match with a man worth $14 billion. So I think it's just going to sail through pretty seamlessly from the mayor's office. And like you said, by the end of next week, Cohen can be fully in charge of the Mets, moved into the offices at Citi Field. And that means at some point next week, and I pray there's video of it, Jeff Wilpon's going to have to pack up the office and move out.
One of the things that I've kind of wondered is, and I haven't asked any of our reporter friends or anything like that. Are there reports out there? I've not seen any reports out there as to the situation with the Mets offices currently, as far as, have certain individuals cleared out their stuff. I don't know how. I know Fred has not come into the office much these past few years. I don't know if he's even maintaining a full office at Citi Field anymore, or if Jeff has moved in. But I'm definitely curious if Jeff has already moved out, or what. Certainly the other question will be, where are the boxes for Mr. Van Wagenen? As it, at least as of now, appears to me that he won't be retained.
No, I don't think he will be at all. Like I said, I don't really know if you can evaluate him. We talked about it at length.
No, you can't.
Weeks ago.
I don't think you can.
Yeah, we talked about it at length on this podcast. So I don't know what Brodie does here. Does he continue to try to maintain some type of role with a single major league team, or does he go back to being an agent, which he was very successful at. That remains to be seen, but I think it is pretty clear that his future doesn't reside with the Mets.
Yeah, it does appear that way. And again, it's one of those things that, I kind of feel bad in a sense because I don't know if I should feel bad or not because, again, you cannot evaluate him just like you could not evaluate Sandy Alderson. Now you'll be able to evaluate Sandy Alderson. For the first time ever, he'll have a little bit of money behind, Moneyball. And, that whole idea that when we hired him back in, was it 2009, 2010, that
Yep.
the concept was going to be Moneyball with money. That's now. That's now. Now, does that mean I think he's going to go on a spending spree with Steve Cohen's dollars? No, I don't. I think he's going to be. I do think he's going to be deliberate, direct, and targeted. But which will disappoint some fans. This isn't going to be a buffet where you go through and you pick up a little bit of Bauer, a little bit of Springer. Let's make sure you get plenty of Real Muto on the plate there as well. It's not going to be like that. Don't forget a side of Stroman. But the reality of it is I think that they will address this team's needs. And, unfortunately, EJ, one of the things that we're finding out is that we may not have a universal DH in 2021, which, as you and I discussed offline last week, that may mean some deals need to happen. And the good news is we have the talent to make those deals, including.
Since we try to keep this podcast PG, I won't share the conversations that you and I had via text last week regarding the DH. That it is just incredible to me that with all of the different rules changes that were implemented this year, the only one that could possibly benefit the Mets for next year was having a universal DH. And it sounds like that's going to be the only one that does not carry into next season. I mean, sometimes you do have to go LOL Mets. That everything that we hate about the rule changes this year, from the guy on second to the bullpen management, minimum number of batters faced, things of that nature, all those things that we despise, yeah, they're going to stay. But the one thing that we needed, the one thing that can actually help this team, they're getting rid of because it has to be negotiated.
I mean, and the stupid thing is it would be for 1 year.
Season. Yep.
And it would go away. One season. And the other reality is I really, for the most part, didn't like those other rules, the ones that are sticking around. I really didn't at all. I mean, the only one I might have tolerated is the extra inning running rule if you bump that back to the 12th or 13th inning. If you get to the 12th inning and your guys are in futility, you want to put a guy on second? All right, fine. We're not going to go 19 that way. That I can deal with that. But 10? Nah, I can't do it.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see traditional extra inning games played through the first couple innings at least. I'm fully in agreement with that. You want to avoid the 22-inning game by throwing a guy on second, starting in the 12th or 13th inning? Huzzah, go for it. But it shouldn't start the you shouldn't have to have a guy come in the 10th inning, a pitcher come in, a relief pitcher. They're a very, very special breed to begin with. These guys get in their own heads, particularly the Mets ones. So you shouldn't have them come in seemingly behind the 8 ball right away in the 10th inning. So unfortunately, that rule is going to stick, though.
I mean, for me, I'd rather see, and this is obviously not a listening session with Major League Baseball, but I would rather see a situation where after the 12th to 13th inning, you know what? If you're the home team and you haven't won the game at this point, time for you to lose home field advantage. It's death.
Right. I totally agree.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
It adds a little extra excitement for those late extra innings. More so, I think, than an artificial runner at second.
Among this weird season that was the season of COVID, how fun was it a couple times to see the visiting team walk it off on an opponent's field because they were technically the home team? We saw that a couple times. That was fun.
Away, walk off home runs away, and it's like, why are you celebrating on that? Oh, that's right. I mean, it's so easy to go, yeah, we're going to, it's smoky in Seattle. We're going to play the home games in San Diego instead.
Right.
Okay. What about the ticket? Oh, yeah, that's right. There are no ticket holders.
Right.
The flat fans are going to get bored. That's pretty much all that's going to happen. Oh,
yeah.
That was not a pun.
Gate. Oh, wait, there is no gate.
Exactly. Well, EJ, I tell you, if we have a sale finalized here in the next few days, we'll have to round up a few people and have a little extra fun this week. But otherwise, we'll reconvene probably with a guest on Sunday. At some point, I want to bring in our good friend Greg Prince from Faith and Fear in Flushing. I think it's time to safely put together that show where we put perspective on the Wilpon era, especially in relation to the other eras of Mets baseball. And as we close the door on it, hopefully once and for all.
Yeah, that's going to be a very, very heartwarming show, I assure you.
Absolutely it will be, and I'm looking very much forward to it. I'm hoping catharsis.
One of my favorite shows we ever did was when Matt Harvey finally left the Mets, and I think I'm going to be a lot more joyful on this one.
Any final thoughts, my friend?
No, let's get a Game 7 here. That would be fun. I want to see the Rays come back. Obviously, I want them to win, so I'd need a Game 7 in order for that to happen. But just from a baseball perspective, I prefer 2 more games of baseball than just 1.
I mean, that's the thing. Once you get to the end of the World Series, that's it. I mean, we could all watch the KBO playoffs, and I probably will some.
I already started.
There you go. I think that from my standpoint, I am always a fan of a 7-game World Series, and even if it holds up the Mets ownership vote by a day, I'm still okay with the 7-game World Series. Let's bring it on. Let's stretch this out, because this is there's some World Series where you go, yeah, I'm glad that was over in 5. That was
right.
This is great. David and Goliath is not winning, but he's not losing, and David is little David. He's got that slingshot, and definitely keeps poking at Goliath. So I mean, I certainly hope the Rays pull it out, but in the meantime, hopefully we get some great games.
Right. Well, David has slung 2 of his rocks. Hopefully the third one lands true as well.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, always great to talk Mets baseball with you, and some World Series baseball as well. We'll be with you here. Like I said, we should schedule to record over the weekend and have a show with you on Sunday. But if ownership or anything else changes along the way, we'll be sure to hit the airwaves with a special show. So make sure you follow us online, at the Happy Recap and at The Real Hoove. And also make sure you subscribe below. Click like, please, and feel free to engage with the program using our social media on Facebook and Twitter. Any topics you want us to cover this winter, any questions you want us to ask specific guests, by all means, send those along, and we're happy to do that. Until next week, let's go Rays!